What's good on everybody? It's Philippines vlog number 8 Ocho Octo, yes! And I am very stoked for this one. This is like, I finally get to talk about one of my favorite things in life, which is vinyl records. Oh yes! So, when I went to get my visa extended back in late June, my fiance and I, we went down to Cebu Expo to Vinyl Dub Records and also OPM Records, which I prefer OPM over Vinyl Dump, and that's mainly because Vinyl Dump really doesn't have much local stuff. I mean, they got a couple of local comps, which I actually uploaded a video of Vinyl Dump so you can see what they have, but if I want the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and U2 and Michael Jackson and the Police and all that, I'll just go back home and go to Love Garden or just go on eBay. I can get the rock and roll legends, I can get all that stuff easily. What I'm after is this, local jams. Now, I didn't buy this at Vinyl Dump. No, I bought this at OPM Records. And before I go into that, I want to clarify something that I didn't know until I talked to the owner of OPM Records. So when I talked to, when I went to Vinyl Dump, I asked the ladies working there if they had any Pinoy rock and roll, and they told me no, they didn't. They had some singers and some compilations, but they didn't have anything I was into. So they pointed me down the street to OPM. Went down to OPM, I looked through all the crates, and same thing. Beatles, Rolling Stones, Kiss, Ramones. I'm like, ugh, if I want this, I can easily get this. I want local stuff. So I went to the shop owner. I'm like, hey, I want some Pinoy rocks. I want some Pinoy, some local bands and stuff like that. So he pulled out this huge ass crate, and I started digging through it. Like, yes, this looks like the stuff I'm after. And so I do need to make a point real quickly. The prices of the Pinoy records at Vinyl Dump were a lot more expensive than a lot of the Western records, like the Beatles and all that. Like, there was a best Pinoy love songs comp for like 3,000 pesos versus Led Zeppelin or the Beatles was like 1,000 or 2,000 pesos. So keep that in mind. As at OPM, when I was looking through the Pinoy record grate, I was noticing all the Pinoy rock records were so expensive. 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 pesos in comparison to Kiss and the Ramones, or 1,500-ish. And I was like, what? Why? Why is the Pinoy stuff so expensive? So that's when I talked to the owner of OPM, and he told me that pretty much around 1991, cassettes were a big boom. Cassettes went big here in the Philippines, and Ivory Records, which is this record over here, the last record plants in the Philippines closed their doors in 1991 or around that time, and therefore every record press 91 or before is now extremely rare and expensive. I paid 2,000 pesos for this. This is Asin. They're a legendary 70s, 80s rock band here from the Philippines. This is their 1984 album, Maga Awitin ng Bayan Kong Pilipinas. I probably said that wrong. It's a very beautiful cover, which I will review this later on, but yes, this was exclusively distributed by Ivory Records Corporation Philippines, and as you can see down here, 1984 is the date on this record. So this is an original pressing from 1984, and you can see by the track listing, this is all local stuff. It's a pretty good record. Like I said, I'll review it in the future, but yeah. And the record itself is in mint condition, as you can see, and there's no scratches on it. It comes with a very unique little I've seen square sleeves, but this is a rounded sleeve. It's pretty cool. I like it. Other than that, there's nothing inside of this. I mean, there's a piece of cardboard for stuffing, I'll assume, but there's no pictures of the band in there. Nothing like that. At Vinyl Dump Records, I did purchase this. It's David Rose and his orchestra play The Stripper, which you might recognize that cover because a few months ago I did a review over C. Zentner and his orchestra play The Stripper. Both records are very similar. I'll review this in the future. One of the key differences, though, on the C. Zentner, there's little stripper drawings on the front and on the back, and this one you can see a red photograph of a stripper behind the curtain, and on the back you can see a bunch of strippers, like actual photographs. This record is a bit more swinging around the place, and this one's more alive than the C. Zentner, but This record right here was 150 pesos, and it's obviously foreign, so yeah, this costs a lot less than the local stuff, as I mentioned. But yeah, so yeah, I got this one right here at OPM for 2,000 pesos. He actually wanted roughly 3,000 for it, but I told him, like, I don't have a lot of money, so he came down on the price, thankfully. Because I just wanted some local jams, and what I have learned since then is that a lot of the punk rock and the metal music from the 80s and 90s, even from the 80s, it's cheaper to buy it on cassette. So Urban Bandits, Woods, George Imbecile and the Idiots, a lot of the bands from Twisted Red Cross and all the other, Dead Ends and all the other punk bands that I want, I'm going to find them on cassette because that's where they're cheaper. Some of the original pressings of, an original pressing of Urban Bandits Independence Day can easily be a few $100s online, easily. Now, just because records stopped being pressed in the Philippines in around 91, that does not mean a Philippine band, not just punk, but a Philippine band after 91, or even before 91 if they're big enough, can still have their jams pressed to wax. They can still have it done. They have to go overseas to an overseas record label and make a deal with them. My example of this is Third World Chaos. Third World Chaos was the very first punk rock band and over here in the Philippines, and in 1984 they released the New Move for Error, which was the very first punk rock record on vinyl here, which the original pressing is it's insanely rare. I'm never gonna own the original pressing, but I don't necessarily know who the reissue is by, but I have seen a reissue from the United States on eBay for 20 bucks. Urban Bandits, same with them. I mentioned Independence Day. The original is a few $100s on eBay. I probably will eventually save up for that. But you can buy their 2015 CD reissue or their 2016 vinyl reissue from punkrecords.com. It's on Discogs for 20 bucks sealed. So yeah, a punk rock band or just a band in general, new or old, can still have their stuff, their jams pressed to wax. They just have to find an overseas record label to do it, which is awesome, but also shitty at the same time. It is shitty for locals who want the records because, it's cheaper than spending a few $100s, but now that they have to go overseas to get their stuff pressed to wax, they have to pay for shipping and handling and imports, and you introduce those fees. There is hope for the Philippines because Japan in 1989, roughly 7 or so years after the CD came out in Japan, the CD came out in Japan in 82, I believe, Japan did the same thing. They stopped pressing records. However, just, I believe, this year, this last March, or it might have been 2017, within the last year or so, they reopened their vinyl pressing plant, allowing for Japanese bands, new and old, to have their stuff pressed to wax in Japan, which is lovely because, I know not everybody's into vinyl, but it just, when there's a pressing plant readily available, and the option is there, more people will flock to it, versus when the option is expensive, especially here in the Philippines. People can't afford much in this country. Japan's doing a lot better than the Philippines is, so Japanese person, I know not every Japanese person's rich, but Japan's obviously doing a lot better than the Philippines. But especially here in the Philippines, if the option is available for a Filipino to get their stuff pressed to wax, and if the option is available for a Filipino to not have to pay as much for a record versus pirating it offline or buying a CD or whatever, they might go for it. And so I do hope one day that a record plant reopens in the Philippines and makes that option available to have newer stuff and older stuff repressed or pressed to wax, and also so that Filipinos can buy cheap records instead of either having to pay hundreds of dollars that they can't afford for an original, or having to pay quite a bit for, an international pressing. So yeah, wanted to talk about that because, it's been on my mind a lot lately, and I've had both of these records for a few weeks now, and yeah, so Austin and David Rose, I will do a review over both of them very, very, very soon. I'm Anarka Akaza, and I'm also going to be picking up a couple of cassettes of some punk rock bands, and I'll be doing a review over them too. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. I'm Anarka Akaza, and do svidaniya.